let's get started then. This is the configure ask me anything. Anup, you have the first question, please.
Yeah, thanks. So first of all, I think as we go through these questions, you will see some lack of knowledge on my part. So if the answer is read the manual, here's the link, just give it to me and I'll go do that offline. We don't have to spend your sick time on teaching me. The first one is what's next and why. So I came at this, I'm familiar with the Kubernetes space. I attended the first KubeCon. I still have the bag, fond memories of it. And it's come a long, long way, Kubeflow and all the other things. But I still had a little bit of a hard time understanding from a user perspective why a feature would be valuable when I was reading the what's next and why. I understand the feature, but I would ask you to like focus on here is the pain point you have with the alternative mechanism, and this is what we solve, because that will hopefully invite more conversation towards you from everybody inside and outside GitLab on your direction page. So it's just a small suggestion. And then the second one was just a nit.
So,
yeah,
sorry,
go ahead,
first of all, thanks for the feedback.
Yeah.
You mentioned Kubernetes here. I can imagine that this is the situation everywhere, so we'll check it. That's one thing. The other thing is that, do you have any specific place where you even missed the why and you would like us to tell you to now, or it's enough if we do it in the direction page?
So what I'm encouraging every PM is like even in the issues like this, the why is less prevalent than the what. And I think like articulate like that, here is the pain if you didn't have this feature. And then the reason is it'll be super helpful for solution architects or marketing people just to take all this great stuff that we are doing and sell it quickly.
So it's not even the direction page, but the issues that you are mentioning.
In general, I see that. I mean, there are some good examples too. So like, I think plan, if you look at plan's direction page, I've seen really good call outs where this is what we are doing and a why sentence, which is pretty clear. And it's so clean that, a sales solution architect can just cut and paste it in their conversation with the customer. So it helps a lot.
I will check it out. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. You have the next question as well.
Yeah, second was just a nit, we can move on. In the Autodevops direction page, there is a group ownership page with a table and a feature column, which was really useful and helpful because I could just go and learn a lot about it. What I didn't get to was like what our definition of auto code quality is or auto build is. And I don't know if we have defined it yet, or this is just a placeholder, but if we have defined it, that'll be really good to see.
I can answer some of those because those are the like ownership model for Autodevops is that actually other stages typically within the ops section and also secure own those capabilities. So auto code quality is we have these additions that you can make to your pipeline that generate a report about code quality, and then it shows in the merge request diff any changes to code quality. Today, if a user wants to do that, they have to go kind of follow the instructions and add that to their CI YAML. Adding something like auto code quality would say if you turn Autodevops on, that would just be a part of Autodevops. Autodevops would also include Autodevops is a very complicated CI YAML today. It would include setting up that same report generation and presentation in your merge request diff.
Awesome. And then so in general, should I interpret something like this to be like, if it's auto code quality, then all things that are in code quality, we want to make them auto, or is there like a first iteration that we want to make auto?
Yeah, there would always be some first iteration, but in some cases, you would want to encapsulate the best practice for those capabilities, not necessarily like, oh, just do a tiny bit, because you're programming a pipeline to just do those things automatically.
Okay.
So there ends up being not like super. Definition? Oh, go ahead.
So I think I get it. My question was, have you defined what that is for each one? Like for this, it's the best practice, for that, it's this first iteration, or is it just still pretty early?
It's pretty early. One of our, there's another issue I can send to you, and that's about Autodevops Adoption that many of the team members here are very familiar with, where the pattern we've seen is that product managers of other groups despite this group ownership model, don't consider adding things to Autodevops to be a high priority because they don't actually see usage from it. So we want to change that, but the status today is, I think if you asked James, you know, like, what is the first iteration for Autodevops, adding code quality to Autodevops, which I think auto code quality is already there, but something new that he wasn't doing, like auto usability testing, let's just say, he would say, I don't really, that's not on my roadmap. That's not an important thing that drives usage for me.
Cool, thanks, that helped. In competitive landscape, we say that there are, you know, leading players with best piecemeal solutions that offer a particular stage. I was just wondering if we have some that we look at and say, oh, they're doing this well in their stage. And let me just give some more context for the reason. You know, we did this Netlify video where we looked at how Netlify is doing publishing, and we compared that to Pages. Now I know the Netlify has much broader use cases, but we also through that process discovered some good usability things we can do in Pages, like low-hanging fruit that will just help our Pages customer. So I'm wondering if we have identified those players and what they do well that we want to incorporate.
Yeah, I would say that first of all, Autodevops is not one of our focus, so we were not updating it recently, the direction page. One thing that I wanted to mention here is the Heroku. Clearly, we always describe Autodevops as a Heroku-like experience for all the GitLab features. And even in CD, we fall short on this. Nicholas just typing HashiCorp Waypoint, which was released a few months ago. And we mentioned it. We had a call with Kenny about that once. So that's another one here. And from time to time, for, as you mentioned as well, for pieces in the Autodevops pipeline, there are various companies who do it really nicely, like Netlify or Versa or something.
Yeah, I think the same logical construct I just outlined applies to this question. What Victor just described as a competition, I think I would categorize your answer as about auto deploy, which is, that's what Heroku does well, that's what HashiCorp does well. But our like auto SAST scanning is a whole different set of competitors. What we're really doing in Autodevops is combining what we would say is the prescriptive best way to run your CI pipeline into one process that can smartly choose based on what your code looks like to make the right decision. But it spans the whole platform, maybe except for plan. Autodevops doesn't really do anything with plan. But otherwise, the answer to the like, who are the leading players is actually who are the leading players in each one of those other stages that are contributing to Autodevops.
Got it. Okay. All right. Thank
Also,
you.
there was a video created recently by someone in the UX group. I'm trying to find it now, but it was comparing kind of the initial onboarding experience of repo and GitHub to repo and GitLab. And the GitHub experience was very much, here's some out-of-date vulnerabilities and automatically create MRs, and it's basically just done at you know, initially, whereas our experience was a little rougher. Say he wasn't able to get the security scanning up and running for reasons. I don't know, Christy, if you know off, I forget his name. Michael, is it Michael?
Marcel.
Yeah, it's Marcel.
Yeah, it was Marcel.
I'm also looking for the link. If I can find it before you do, I'll post it.
In Slack somewhere. Yeah, I kind of gave up for the moment, but yeah, that's a good one, I think. And
Thank you. Yeah, I'll check it out. I think Nicholas, you had 4B.
Oh, I'm pretty sure we already talked about it. Yeah,
okay.
Just that yeah, HashiCorp Waypoint is a technology that we could leverage should we decide to do so. There's nothing stopping.
I just lost audio, guys. Just hang in there with me 1 second. Hello. Can you guys?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, definitely.
We can hear you, but not Nicholas.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we lost you.
We can't
Now
hear
you're
you
back,
now?
but we do.
Okay.
We know.
Sorry.
What's the next highest priority for this category? And by the way, I know that this was sort of on the back burner, and we have now a slightly more evolved opinion. So I'm not trying to. I understand why this is new, and it's amazing that we have this thinking. So I'm just trying to understand what the next priority is.
I would say, as who owns today the category, that we have to find an owner for this category. I raised this topic many months ago, and we don't have the bandwidth in the configure team for that. But clearly, there's need for a fresh start, a lot of fresh thinking, probably a design sprint opportunity or something like that.
Yeah, and I think that Anoop is on CM and I, who are working through a couple of proposals to make sure we're staffing
Oh yeah,
appropriately.
One of them was the single person group that the team was looking at. Thanks.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should have some more, I think, clarity on that this week. Exactly what will be the next step there. I guess one point I'd make too is that I think at GitLab we're very good at kind of creating teams that have a clear charter, and they drive a Gmail metric that that's a very natural motion for us. In other cases where stuff's more cross-cutting, and I put Autodevops in that category, the incentives get a little bit stranger. Yeah. You could look at it from the configure team's point of view, say, well, if they really want to drive Gmail, things that are very specific to configure are going to help that more than, say, a cross-cutting experience that is kind of unifying, GitLab and driving that type of adoption. Like that would be may make sense strategically at the company level, but I think our teams aren't set up that way with metrics. So that's one thing we've been thinking about too, is like, how do what are the right metrics to draw, or KPIs for Autodevops?
Yeah, one of the things we talked about in the vision, the business value of Autodevops, is that it would singularly drive stages per user, right? Because if you get somebody to turn on Autodevops, you've just turned on 5 stages for them. But yeah, we don't have a structure for saying that's why we should prioritize this capability within a specific group. We used to have a whole group just for Autodevops, and we've since disbanded it.
Makes sense. I'll think about it as well. I think I'm glad you brought this up, Sam, because one of the things that if we had a measurable metric for Autodevops, and then we said, hey, a particular team is really only accountable for that particular metric, then I hope that busts through our sort of single-threaded ownership model, because then now you have the ability to move ADO and you do what you think is right for it. If it still requires contributions from other teams, one model that Fabian is working on, and I'm sure some of you are aware, is he's created some contribution architecture for HA on Geo. And I'm sort of excited to see that roll out and see if that sort of model works for some use cases, where here is a canned sort of framework on how you contribute to it, and it makes it easy for you, it makes it easy for the other team.
That's great. I think, yeah, ultimately, I think something like that would be very useful for Autodevops.
Thank you. Yeah, I saw the SciSense data. It had like a nice little clip in 2018 through 2019, and it's then just basically a set of pipelines. So I understand this better now. Thanks.
Unfortunately, we don't have data about that. We are just implementing a bit better metrics. It's still not model-based at all, but to have at least metrics to know that which templates are used and how often they are used. Because everything that you see in Periscope today is actually from GitLab.com.
Yeah.
But given the Kubernetes focus of Autodevops, it might not be our users might be actually self-hosted. We don't know.
Makes sense. Yeah. Do we consider this viable based on user research, or is this based on past assessment? Right.
Yeah, it was based on past assessment. So I already inherited the category as such, and user research was only added later. I would say there's actually one use case where I would consider it viable, which is when the templates are not looked at as a product, but as a set of best practices that others can build their own templates on. And this is the way I see our solution architects present Autodevops quite often as well. From a product point of view, I would say it's not viable.
I was trying to add this in. I'll finish typing after I say it. So as part of the UX FY22 direction, we as a UX department have committed to doing one big cross-product research effort. As of right now, and Kenny is aware of this because Kenny commented on it in the MR. Right now, we have it focused on setup, installation, and upgrades, which based on today's product meeting, sounds like upgrades are a concern. We're not hitting our PI target on upgrades. That being said, if Autodevops is more important, and we think that it's more of a driver, a business driver for us, that is a conversation we could also have. Now, I want to also say that does not mean that this is the only cross-product research effort that we can do in fiscal year 22, but we're at least trying to get something where we're like, hey, as product and UX teams, we are aligned around like, this is a thing that we have to know about. We have to figure it out together. So I would rely on you, product leadership, to tell us what you think the greatest value is.
Yeah, thanks for that, Chrissy. I will follow up. I feel like we need to get, like Anoop talked about, the contribution architecture and the kind of what team is assigned aligned before we would make that request. Just as a clarification, is that outside of the kind of UX research prioritization that we're already doing directly with Lori and Andre who are assigned, or is that in replacement of?
It all comes from the same bucket, right?
Okay.
There's only so many people to do the work. So I think more than anything, this is saying like, hey, this is something that we as leadership teams think is something that is so important. We're going to say now we're going to prioritize this thing. And then Adam will work with the product leadership team to figure out, okay, where do those resources come from? How do we iterate on it? Because we don't have to do it all in one chunk. You know, we can do it over time.
Yeah, in my mind, just to add to that, there is a lot of overlap between the things you said, the upgrades and signups and, you know, that kind of user growth metrics, and at least what Autodevops could be as something that's kind of a, you know, helps you maximize your usage and expand that and kind of shepherd you in best practices. So anyway, I see a connection there. I could see those dovetailing well together.
Before we talk about something other than Autodevops, which is the next couple of questions, I do want to highlight, like, Sam has been a great contributor to the vision that is now written for Autodevops, which was recently updated. As well as, Sam, you pointed out to me something that I think is important that I'll just verbalize for you, but like, but when you joined, Autodevops was a really compelling portion of why you joined GitLab, because it is a big vision for what it means to be a single DevOps platform. And we've definitely, I think it was our 2018 funding round that we made a big deal about how we were going to do this Autodevops thing. It was going to make DevOps easier. Like, our platform was just going to automatically do it for you. And we've definitely deprioritized that effort. And I think at some expense to our expansion of users to other stages. So it's important to me that we pursue this vision. We need to figure out how at the moment.
Thanks for that context, Ken.
Thanks.
Are we ready to go to 8? Yeah, so cluster cost management. I have a lurking sense, I'm not really sure, if I don't have enough data to prove it yet, that our users, maybe let's say a large enterprise, might pay us $500,000 for GitLab, but their CI/CD pipelines cost them 10 times of that. And so if we can save them even 10% of it, we paid for our product, and it's practically free. And so that's where this question is coming from, which is cluster cost management. Can you explain what you mean by cluster in the cost management? Is it the entire CI/CD operations, or is it something very specific? And you know, yeah, just explain to me what is included in it from a user's perspective and what isn't.
Yeah. Yeah, from the user's point of view, what's included is only the running cost of the clusters. By cluster, I mean Kubernetes clusters. So it's totally Kubernetes focused.
And only clusters that are deployed by us.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Any kind of Kubernetes cluster. We have a really truly minimal solution here, which means that we have documentation to deploy an application called kubectl, and that application, its feature is that it provides Prometheus metrics, and with the GitLab metrics dashboard, we can reach those metrics and show it to the user that these are your costs. It's up to the user to set up these metrics. We provide a basic dashboard, but if they want something more elaborate, it's up to them to come up with the Prometheus queries and everything around that.
Okay.
It could be used for a runner cost, or if the runner is deployed to Kubernetes.
Okay. So it's cluster cost Kubernetes cluster cost visibility at this point. Is that?
Yes,
okay.
Exactly. That's a nice description. Yeah.
Thank
and
you.
I think from a runner perspective, the general answer is no. Most of our users aren't attaching their Kubernetes cluster, even if they were using a Kubernetes cluster to scale runners, aren't attaching that to GitLab. So if I were to say, where are we answering the question of how are you optimizing the usage of your runner fleet, that's actually in runner enterprise management that Darren's working on.
Got it. Thank you. That helps. Yeah, it sounds like this one is also something that we've deprioritized. Is that a fair assumption?
That's totally fair. Actually, it was meant to be minimal for a very long time, and that's why we tried to ship something there to make it actually minimal. Since then, there were changes in the product direction as well, and the team is focusing on the agent too, so we don't have bandwidth for that. That's totally correct. It's deprioritized.
Cool, thanks. I think I had the next one. Do we consider harnesses cost optimization a competitor in the category? And the next one was, if so, what do we plan to ship here?
Yeah, I know about harnesses as one of the solutions, but I haven't looked at them recently, so I can't really answer your question.
Okay. Yeah, I'll link you to it if you find it interesting.
Thank you.
And I'm only getting the marketing pitch of it, so we don't know in reality whether it works or not, right? So take that with a pinch of salt.
Yeah,
but
I can try.
I have the last question, and this is to all three of you, Nicholas, Victor, and Maria. There's a lot of breadth in configure. There's a lot of places where we could go, but you seem to have found success like going to very deep in identifying user problems and then tackling those directly. I think of like the education that all three of you did for the team to get on board with Terraform, and then Kubernetes agent, and now we're talking about secrets management. Just wondering, Victor and the team, how do you guys prioritize that shift and manage that shift to other breadth opportunities?
Yeah, let me try to answer first with a specific example, and after I will try to give you the generic idea I have in my mind. The specific example is around secrets management, which is just broadened our focus, and I really like the work that Jackie did there before. So I even said to Kenny when it was that you shouldn't give it to us because we won't have bandwidth to continue there. There, what we tried to do. So it took us 2 months to find any available resources to get started on secrets management, and for me as well to get at least some understanding of the issues and the user problems and the environment. What we're doing now is we want a lead engineer, let's say, who leads these initiatives, who will be Tiger probably, who gets to know the code base, gets to know the product, and we will start shipping features while we are learning really our user base and their needs. And we don't have a vision there yet at the same time. So I intend to build it up during the next 2 months as we know more and we get more feedback. how do I think about it in general, is that when we set out all our current directions, I would say that I see a good enough feature set where after which I would be bored personally. So that's the time to move to other areas as well. To put it simply, that would be the way to do it. Here again, specific example is with infrastructure as code. From the very beginning, we had 3 ideas: the merge request, which enables collaboration around infrastructure as code; the GitLab Mesh Terraform state, which fits perfectly in the single DevOps idea of GitLab; and the Terraform registry. These are still there. So this is, you can think about this as deep, but this is actually breadth. These are 3 separate directions inside infrastructure code. We have a 4th one, which kind of integrates these, which is a infrastructure automation, where on the UI you can do stuff, but I'm not sure we want to follow along instead of focusing on other areas like cluster cost management, or who knows what will come by then.
Thanks. Maria, do you want to verbalize? Or Nicholas, sorry, yours were next.
Sure. Yeah. Just want to say on the engineering side, we typically utilize like a lead engineer model. We'll find someone that's interested in that area, that has probably some pre-existing knowledge that they can seed in, utilize, and they kind of dive in and explore it, maybe do a POC, and then try to understand the opportunities from the technical side. And then we leverage a lot of cross training. We try to cycle people into different projects, so there's not a lot of siloing of information. And as well, like when that starts to happen, there's a kind of a network effect of people seeing opportunities between the different product areas. So we can start to build like kind of these build features that link together and support each other. I think that's where we're headed, really, when we look at the Terraform features. In addition to the agent, we'll be able to build a lot of things off of that. And then also we leverage pair programming a lot. So there's, again, that kind of cross training that can happen in those contexts.
Well, from my perspective, considering our kind of low adoption, not for Terraform, but at least for the agent, my goal is to reach out other stages and see how we could inject ourselves in their user journeys. So it could be a seamless experience, at least on the ops side, maybe from the dev side as well. But so that's my long-term goal.
Kenny, you're on mute.
Sorry, I said thanks, we're at time, but I also want to say thank you to the 3 of you, Nicholas, Maria, and Victor. I consider the agility in the configure group to be like a model that we want other groups to follow. So that like ability to identify a problem, go deep on it, and shift the whole group to a new one is a really amazing capability that you've all created. So thank you for that.
I appreciate you thinking about an area where we don't have like dedicated resources, because it's good that we are thinking about it. So if we have that opportunity, we can execute on it.
Thank you for your questions and feedback.
All right, thanks everybody.
Thank you.